Hello.
Oh,
What was I?
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you.
Good.
Well, your
Seems.
hair is amazing.
What is?
Your hair.
Oh, really? I was gonna say that like I feel like our hairs are being like opposites.
Yeah,
You
I've
have this
given
like
up.
curly blonde hair, and I have this like dead straight brown.
I'm full lockdown mode.
You've naturally got wavy hair or curly hair.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
and I'm covered in dew on spots, but you know,
I have not put any makeup on, so here we are.
raw. I love it. You all good though?
I am. Yeah, it's 10 a.m. kicking goals.
It's 4 o'clock here, so I've done them.
Oh yeah, I'm all fresh and ready to go, and you're like, this is my last call.
Yeah, yeah. I had an exciting call with like a new client earlier, so it's one of those that you like just want to get going. So I think I'm going to be working late.
Oh yeah, I so know that feeling. Like yesterday I was gonna work out, but I just wanted to like do work.
Yeah, literally. So
Yeah, but it's a good feeling.
I have started recording just because I find that a lot of my best conversations start before we've even pressed record, but I can edit away. But thank you so much for coming. This is fun, isn't it?
It was fun. I always really enjoy catching up with you. And it's so funny. The other day someone was like, you should have Chloe on your podcast. I'm like,
Duh.
I think there's like 3 episodes,
Two.
maybe.
There's
Yeah,
two, yeah.
well, we'll
Where have
do
you
a
been?
yeah.
Oh, that's nice of them. But yeah, and I know obviously we've had a chat on my YouTube before, but I've obviously got a podcast of Female Feel Good Club, and I think it's about time that we really talk about the HA community and your journey because you're now pregnant, and this is so exciting. So I hope you don't mind, but I think let's just get on with it. Should we start with, can you give people a bit of a background of your story? Previously, when we spoke, we didn't really dive like right into it, where we were very like just chatty, weren't we? Whereas, and you always interview people on your podcast, like I shared my journey. Well, you share yours.
Oh,
Excuse my cup, by the way. Can you read
okay.
that?
Is it because you were one, but you're not one, or you are one now?
I am
You
one.
are one now. That's right. You weren't before.
Yeah.
Love it. Owning it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited. I always really enjoy sharing my story. I'll be as concise as I can. It's pretty simple. I grew up the average teen who like didn't exercise a whole lot and just moderately active. Gained a bunch of weight as I got older. Um, saw myself in a mirror at a department store and was like, whoa. I remember when I freaked out about my body image officially. And from that day on, I just was like figuring out working out, dieting. I discovered like doing CrossFit, and then was like, oh, the more I do it, the better things will turn out for my body, the way I look. And then I discovered things like paleo and Whole30 and then macro tracking, which was like my first real calorie deficit, which is where I really think things started to kind of change.
Can I just jump in and ask, you talk about the department store uh,
Mm.
situation. What were the feelings that went through your mind and then during that when you saw your body then?
Yeah, I bring up that because I think we can all relate to how tragic the lighting in like a department store is. And you just, and they have those 360 mirrors. So it was actually, I swear it was the first time that it had occurred to me that like I look a certain way from behind, right? So I remember what was happening. I was trying something on, so I didn't have anything on,
Okay.
and I looked in the mirror and I could see directly behind me, and I just remember like mortification of just like, and all of these beliefs that I had around like how a woman is supposed to look came front and center, and I wasn't fitting the bill at all. You
Okay.
know,
And when you say about the sorry, I'm diving in deep on this one
No,
particular.
do it.
Or when you say about the ideals of women that you didn't fit into, what do you think, not necessarily going into what they were, but how did that make you feel that you felt as if you weren't that ideal?
Yeah. I struggle even today, so I know the feeling, right? Like it's still there in some ways. It's not as mortifying as it once was, but it's just like not being accepted. It's like it's extreme loneliness straight away. I'm not going to be a part of this exclusive club of human beings, and that's very painful, and it feels almost like this childish pain of being left out. That's kind of how I explain it. It was,
And what was
yeah.
your initial thought then? What was how were you going to solve that?
Yeah, I was like, it's time to go to the gym. Like I already knew
Okay.
what options were out there, right? Go to the gym. Dieting came in after I it's so interesting how I started exercising, and it wasn't until I was in that space that people were recommending things like diets. And the first one I did was the Whole 30. I still remember people being like, oh, we're going to do the Whole 30. And me being like, what's that? And learning about this idea that there's processed food and like good and bad, and putting morals on what we should be eating.
Yeah, I remember actually being like deep into fitness, and I was very oblivious to the fact I actually had a problem, but I was very aware of how much I knew. So what I would call as like education. And I remember actually speaking, my boyfriend at the time, we would have conversations about actually like wishing we didn't know as much as we did,
Mm-hmm.
because no longer, obviously looking back, it was we were very, very disordered, but at the time you just think you're really healthy. So when like Whole 30 comes out, or paleo, and that's the one I'm trying now, I can't eat food normally anymore. That's how I viewed it. And I remember us having the conversation of going, hey, don't you wish that we just like didn't know as much as what we
Yeah.
did? And I think that's the issue, isn't it? It's like a sinkhole. You start very innocently, or what is perceived as innocent, in terms of like just starting to exercise, and then because you're just opened up to this whole like shark tank of information.
Yeah. That's it. Like you open the door and you can't leave.
Yeah.
And you see other people. I can imagine you and your boyfriend in that situation. And I can see you in like a food court, seeing other people eating carefree in a way, about like just enjoying their thing. And you're like, I wonder what it's like to just eat that without, you know, sticking all of these like morals and values and like ways that you're going to have to make up for it later
Yeah.
onto yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the diets that you tried, and how were they making you feel, and what sort of things were you trying to get out of all of these diets?
Yeah. At the beginning, it was actually really educational and helpful, right? Like, oh yeah, there is all of this processed stuff smashed into all of this food. And I think that that's valuable to know.
Mm-hmm.
And I still use that to make conscious decisions around food. But then, I got very, just like, way too serious about it.
Okay.
But my very first ever focus was on quality and like where I was getting food from. So I was still eating tons of food. I was probably eating more food, because I would eat like half a chicken and a whole thing of roast vegetables, or like, eggs and beef for breakfast. And I would have like tons more vegetables than I used to have. So, but I wasn't, I was still cycling. I was doing well. Like it kind of was just a decision to be more mindful about the food choices that I ate. But then I will say, like, it did make it problematic in my social life, right? So
Okay.
that was a bit of a downside. I couldn't eat these things, and I was so young and annoying. I was like 18 maybe, and would like make my family feel like crap about it. because they were eating pasta and stuff.
Can we talk about that? How did you manage that with your family? Like what sort of things were you projecting on them?
Yeah, I think I would just use terminology like, I don't eat that. Or, I would see them choose something. Like, I remember my mum buying coconut milk, but she would buy the light coconut milk. And me being like, you might as well just get full fat. And my intention for that was to point out to her that light coconut milk is actually just 50% water. So you could just get full coconut milk and add water if you wanted to. But she was so sick of my shit by that point, that she cracked at me. And there's just these moments where I see, like, my mom would just crack at me for being so annoying. Like, one day she had a sticky bun at home, and ants had gone to it because Australia.
What's a sticky bun?
It's like it's like a sweet bread roll with icing on top.
Oh, ice bun.
Yes. We'll call it like a sticky bun or a finger bun. Yeah, that's good.
Sticky bun is cute. I want to call it that.
Because your fingers get all sticky when you eat it.
True. But also, what do we call it? I think we call it a Chelsea bun. Or is that something different? Chelsea bun. Hold on, let me see this. Oh,
yeah,
no.
I do love the different names.
Chelsea bun's completely different. They look good though.
Well, there you go. An iced bun?
Yeah, I swear we call it an ice bun. That's so good as well. Sorry.
No, that's good. That sounds so English. Yeah, so like that. And because it's hot as F at home, there's always an ant problem. Like, you have an ant problem if you live at home.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for sure. Like, they come looking for food. Totally. So I remember I threw it out because it was covered in ants. But my mum's initial thought was I threw it out because I'm being all uppity about my beliefs around what the family should be eating. So that showed me that there was something about my behavior around others that was shaming and guilting other people in the family.
The other behaviors that you had, I'm sorry, I'm really clinging on to your journey. I just think that it's so relatable, and a lot of us don't realize, like, I was exactly the same in the sense that I might not have openly said it, but I would definitely judge people. For example, if someone offered me a glass of Prosecco or something, I would just go, nah, waste of calories.
Yeah, you would tell them why you're saying no.
Yeah, and it's like, actually, there's no need to tell them. But because I was so, like, in fitness and in diet, that I had to tell them. So what were a few you said about, like, your mum ended up snapping and things like that? Were there any other traits and behaviors that you had that were clearly quite disordered at the time, but maybe you didn't realize it?
I don't think I really realized how seriously the fact that I had started to restrict food was causing me to hyper focus on other food. Okay. And so I did a lot of restricting and binging, and a lot of binging on junk food. This junk food that I was so against and, like, loved to make other people feel like shit about, apparently. On Saturday every 2 weeks, I would totally eat more than I could handle. And I think, looking back, I remember before all of that being just, like, unattached to food. I worked in the city, and I would go and buy whatever I felt like for lunch. And it might be a roast beef sandwich, or it might be spaghetti bolognese, or it could be anything. And now I can't even remember what it was like to just make a decision based on, like, what I felt like. Yeah. So yeah, I remember my behavior changing around, like, how I felt around eating food. And, like, now food was just served this purpose to get my body to a certain way. And it, like, all of these other people around me just don't know what they're doing, I suppose.
Definitely. I remember having a conversation with a friend about how, and I was pretty, like, proud of it as well. Or I would just be saying, like, yeah, I don't really view food as something that I enjoy. It's just something that I fuel myself with.
Oh.
How sad.
I know. I know.
And what were your emotions in that time that you were really restricting? What was the emotions like compared to when you said that you were binging on food? How did those emotions like differentiate?
Wait, before restricting and after?
So like during a restriction, what
Oh
was
yeah.
that? What were those feelings? And yeah, what were you kind of feeling in that time?
Yeah. You know, I think I was generally pretty miserable about the whole thing. I think I was generally pretty hungry. As soon as the food restriction came around, because deciding not to eat processed food, there was still this amazing world of food I could eat that I was happy about. And I really enjoyed that time.
Yeah.
And I felt really good. When it came to like learning about restriction of like calories and maybe even Whole30, right? No dairy,
Yeah.
like little things like that. That's when it started. That's when I would experience like just being anxious
Okay.
all the time about like, when's my next meal? What am I going to have? Can I have that? Like, I don't know if you remember, but just the stress of eating something you don't know if it's got like xanthan gum in it or something. It's
I
like,
just found just anything that wasn't from a packet. So unless it was vegetables or fruits, for me, if I didn't know the calories of something, I wasn't going to eat it.
oh yeah, I come across those people a lot. And I remember like, because my journey into macro tracking is wildly different. The food quality thing went out the window.
Yeah.
And I was like, which showed me that truthfully, the only reason I was doing it was because I thought I could make some kind of body composition changes eating one way. And when I discovered actually you can eat all the junk that you want and track your macros, I made the switch like overnight. So that's interesting.
That it was never about health in the first place.
I don't think so. How could it have been when it ended up like I was psyched about working Pop-Tarts into my day all of a sudden when I'd never had one in my life. So
Okay, talk to me about that transition into macros. How did that happen?
yeah, so I just discovered that looked like a very solid way to achieve what I was obviously trying and failing to achieve, because in the end I just was never in this calorie deficit. Entered into that world, lost a bunch of weight, was like, oh my gosh, I found the answer, and was just like, this is the answer. Like I love how much weight I've lost, and I love that I found this very specific protocol that I can follow to make it happen. And so I thought it was magical, and I became like the world's biggest proponent of that now. Yeah.
Soon having the ice bun in the house was absolutely fine as long as mum could fit it in her macros, right?
I don't remember if I ever pushed that, because I think I knew that like macros was for like a lot of work. Because a lot of work, not everyone's going to be bothered to do that. I'm not going to put that on my mum. But I did definitely say, hey, this is something I'm going to try, which means I'm not going to be eating with you guys at all.
Wow.
Like, this is what I'm going to make my own food.
And how did that change the family dynamic?
I was like about to move out. Like, it was kind of timing with some changes there. So I moved in with my boyfriend, and that didn't work out very well. It was actually his idea. And he was also, he worked out a lot. He was pretty lean.
Now hubby?
No.
Different.
Different. And so he got me on this because I was like feeling upset about my body and none of this stuff was working. And then I got onto macros, and he was more muscular than I was, and he was a male, and he could eat more food than he had more food allocated to him than I had allocated to me. And it was really hard, and it made me grumpy and miserable to be around. Dude, at some point I was eating every night like a whole bag of cabbage, just like cooked in soy sauce for flavor, and some kind of like a depressing like pork loin or chicken breast. And I would have like this little tiny like half teaspoon of mayonnaise to add like the littlest bit of flavor, like low fat mayonnaise, because I was eating just like an incredibly low or moderate amount of carbs and protein. So I was starving. and it was hard. So he and I would fight a lot. He would get to eat like steak and potatoes, and I would be eating my cabbage and chicken. It was a miserable time.
Talk to me about, you said about how moody and stuff like that you were. Can you tell me a bit about other side effects that you had?
Yeah. So side effects that you couldn't physically see was, yeah, moodiness, can't be bothered to do anything, like just tired. I was working 6 to 7 days a week at that point. So I was getting up at 4 a.m. for work. So I really think I had like a very high cortisol, high adrenaline kind of keeping me going. But I was very high stress. So if something went wrong in my day, I could flip. There were times where I had full, just like, I don't know, they weren't panic attacks. They were super aggressive. And I would like bang cupboards and throw things and break things and become very aggressive. And I honestly thought that was the person that I am.
Wow.
Like this is just the person that I am. I now know I was hungry, dude, because I've never done that again. Like, but I used to do it consistently. So it was a mixture of overworking and not fueling for it, and training, working out every day as well. I was just in survival, and I needed everything to go a certain way. Otherwise, I didn't have the emotional and physical capacity to handle it anymore.
Yeah, completely agree. I remember my ex, and he would just call me a miserable bitch. He would,
Right.
honestly, like, and I remember I got to a stage that I would just like look at him and feel nothing, but not necessarily like because it was necessarily him, but like I literally must have been restricted or had so much low energy that I literally didn't care about anything. That
Mm-hmm.
it got to the point that I was like, I don't care. I literally just don't care. And I was moody, and we would argue, and I would be so stressed. I would take a day off and be stressed about the fact I'd taken a day off. Like, and
Oh,
again, similar to you in the sense of like, I just thought I'm a bitch and this is who I am, and there's nothing I can do about it, and this is just what I'm gonna have to deal with. And I look back and I oh, we've split, and I'm with like the most amazing guy now, and he will still do stuff that I would have previously reacted to that I now find funny, and I have to like check in, and I'm like, oh my god, I just laughed and that was actually really funny. Like, do you know?
yeah.
It's like,
I,
yeah,
I
I'm even
totally,
still surprised about how much of a different person I am.
yes, because that what comes up for me there is like the ability to now accept spontaneity.
Yes.
And yeah, so change of plans. Okay, cool. Like, we're not doing this, or I know we were going to make this for dinner, but let's actually go out and get this instead. Like, that is now something that brings joy that once brought immense anxiety.
Yeah, I
I
now
didn't
say,
go to my boyfriend's 30th birthday because he was having pizza. I know that's crazy. That's so bad. So
wow,
like,
that is mad. Yeah.
yeah.
But I'm similar. The spontaneity thing is so true in the sense like Jim, my boyfriend will be like, "Oh, I'll see you Saturday. What do you want to do?" And I'm like, "Don't worry, we'll just decide then." Whereas
Mm.
like previous Chloe would be like, "No. You tell me, right? You're coming to mine at this point. Blah 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 blah. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this, and then you've got to go by this point because then I'm gonna do this." And I would feel like I would have to tell everyone the whole plan, so everyone knew this is the plan. Okay.
I get it. Yeah. I don't know what it is exactly, but we just become super uptight about
Yeah.
the whole thing. And you
So
can't enjoy any of it.
so tell me, life after HA, we've obviously touched on quite a bit about the symptoms that you had when you had HA. How's your life different now, minus the obvious?
Right. Yeah. Right. The growing alien thing that's like
Yeah.
in my stomach right now. Yeah. I mean, it's completely different. My husband's life is completely different now too, because he and I were together at that stage as well. And yeah, his life's improved, mine's improved. We can eat things. I don't I don't eat to a point of illness, which is actually very freeing. I um have no restriction, and which means I don't overeat on certain things that I used to overeat. Like I used to overeat on just things I must have been deficient in, right? And now I love the idea of going out with friends. And it's okay if the reservation isn't until 7 or 8 p.m. Whereas in the past, it was like, if we're not eating at 6, it's just too late because I can't hold out that long. Yeah, so we can do things like that. We can have a day where we're not going to get time to have lunch till like 3. And that's okay. And I know that might sound weird to some people, but when your life is set up to have meals at certain intervals because you're so bloody hungry, you actually can't do a lot. It's like pretty hard. It's pretty hard to do. And so now I can go to like a coffee shop outside of COVID and sit there and do deep work undistracted for ages. And if I'm hungry and all they have is a croissant, I'll just have a croissant versus like causing myself to starve. And these things were really big for me. They used to put me in intense chronic stress that caused my HA, right? Like being hungry, being stressed about being hungry, not having access to what I needed, especially to survive, which was also not nourishing me anyway. So I think that the whole life that I've gone back, and that's my whole shtick with HA. And from day one, it's like, oh shit, when you go through this and you get your period back, you get your whole life back. I don't think we realize, but we go on this journey just to get our period back because we realize it's good for us. And then it comes to light just how much it took away from us.
Oh, 100%. It's even things like I had no sex drive whatsoever.
No, yeah. Nope.
Sorry,
It was
Dad, if you listen to this. But yeah, like absolutely no sex drive to the point we would argue big time about it, like huge arguments about it. And I laugh now because I just put that label to me of just being like, maybe I'm just one of those girls that just doesn't want it and I don't like it. And maybe we're just not meant to be together because we've got different drives. And then it's only when I recovered that I was like, oh my Lord, who is this? And what is this?
Oh, this is connected?
Yeah.
Of course it's connected. I know. And I don't think I realized either that it was why. I thought it was because by that time I had gotten so into my athletics that I had tried become an athlete and was like training and being serious. So I really was just like, well, when when you lift a lot, you get tired.
Yes.
You know what? No, I think I should have a sex drive.
Yeah, I thought that because I was a personal trainer. So I was doing like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. PTs and then finishing at like 9. And I just assumed, oh, I'm just tired. Like, I can't be bothered. But maybe this is just me. But no,
No,
girls.
great. Actually, if you had eaten like 400 or 500 extra calories that day, maybe you would feel like it.
Definitely. So, talk to me if you could say there was 3 areas. Give me 3 things benefits of recovering.
Yeah, okay. So you get your whole social life back, and people want to be a part of it because you're a nice person now. So that's a good one. Benefit for me, I can have a family now. I'm pregnant. I think that basically having a fully functioning reproductive system should never leave the list of recovery. And oh, dude, it's cliche to say,
Yeah.
but food is actually the spice of life, and I get it now. Like sometimes I think about it and I'm like, this just tastes so good. Like I'm going about my day and having a great day, and a little cherry on top is how good all of my meals have been. Like it's like adding a little bit of like paprika to my life. Like it's so good. And yeah, I think it just does something for you, for your soul, that just brings joy to you in a small way every day that you're not getting.
Definitely. I love that. Love that so much. So, what was the turning point for you that made you feel like you really needed to recover?
Yeah. I went to the OBGYN. I had like my annual pap smear checkup, and
Okay.
he was, I don't know why this is relevant, but he was just this like older, I'm in America, right? Like extremely overweight man telling me what to do about my body, and it just like pissed me off. So he said, I told him I haven't had a period in like 4 years. He's like, we really worry when women don't get their period. And I was like, that was the first time I ever heard that. And I was like, huh. He's like, I'm going to prescribe to you progesterone, the progesterone challenge, 9-day pill. And I got the prescription, but I didn't take it. I was like, because this is my whole like holistic, like paleo, I should, food is medicine, I can do this myself thing. But that was the time, like, okay, the doctor's trying to give me medicine. Like the doctor's telling me something is up, but I'm not going to take this pill. So that was actually the day that I figured it out, that like that I figured out that I need to figure it out.
Okay, yeah.
He didn't give me a name for it or anything. Like that was just the first time I discovered that I should look into why my period is missing.
Okay, and then what was the journey through to?
It's kind of blurry. I don't know about you, if yours is too, but mine's a little bit blurry. Because it was a few years ago now, but I looked into it. I think I came across maybe like the term hypothalamic amenorrhea, and then I looked up podcasts that talk about it, and I found this really great show that I love, Well-Fed Women. They talk about lots of women's health issues, but they had a number of episodes talking about it. And that was like, they had said, they had started questioning this need to be thin, this need to diet. They were like, who said we need to be thin like that? Like, and this, they brought up this concept of maybe it's healthy for us to have a certain amount of body weight, and women can be healthy at different body weights, and some women need to have a heavier body weight than society is expecting us to have. And I remember my first response being, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like, that is ridiculous. And that's brainwashing. That's me. I have never ever experienced someone else suggest that. The world has conditioned me to think smaller and leaner is healthier and better. These women suggesting this for the first time ever at the age of like 20 something, I just felt completely argumentative about it. But I kept listening to it, which was interesting. I just kept listening to it. And then I snapped out of it. And I honestly feel like I snapped out of a trance where I was like, oh my God, I have believed that I have to be that way. And it's quite intuitive that I shouldn't. Yeah. So that, like, those two women having that conversation on that podcast like 3 or 4 times is what like snapped me out, which is why I'm passionate about having conversations like we're having now. People need to hear it over and over again for it to make a difference. So it was really a slow thing, but that was it. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll gain some weight and I'll eat some more. But it was still scary, right? It was so scary to gain weight and to go against the grain.
Yeah.
But I was finally ready to start like dipping my toe in and learning more about it. And that's why I'm here where I am today, because I took this really long journey and I did all this research and I had all these hiccups and I fell over and got up and fell over and got up. And I just learned so much about myself and the world. Yeah, it was a slow process, but that is basically the answer.
And am I right in that's what inspired you to create the HA?
Totally. Because I realized in my journey, I was like, it's actually really hard to find information about this. It's so hard. I'm like looking for podcast episodes on other people's show where they like might mention it, and like maybe they have Nicola Rinaldi on the show, or like maybe they're talking about it and they're all talking about it at this very high level general concept and no one's diving deep into it. I'm like, I can't find any information on this.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's why I did it, because I just realized, well, if you can't find it, then you should make it.
definitely. So tell, for people that don't know, which I know that a lot of people that do follow me do know, but for those that don't, can you give us a bit of a lowdown about what it is and what people can expect?
Yeah, totally. The podcast
Yeah, and
is
the society.
and the society. Yeah. So I started with this podcast, was the first thing I did. I started getting girls to come on and tell their story. So there's all these different women with different stories. And the goal of that is for people to be able to find themselves in someone else's story. Because I think that that's very important. A huge factor for me, which we didn't even talk about, was that I didn't feel like I fit the mold for amenorrhea, which is why it took me so long to make the changes. I was like, I'm not teeny tiny. I've never been anorexic. And this is a misconception that you need to fit that criteria. So I wanted to find these different concepts of women in bigger bodies and normal bodies and women who did fit like the traditional bill. And I wanted the whole gambit to come and tell their story. And then I also reached out to professionals to kind of explain the things scientifically that I can't explain, or from their expert field that I can't explain. And then for fun, I get girls who also have platforms in the space, like you, Meg Doll and Sarah Liz, and we come on and do like Q&As and just chit chat from our perspective, because we're so deep in it and we're talking to all of these women all the time who have it. So it's just this resource where girls can come in and get familiar with it, find out they're not alone, get some tidbits of information, and really start the journey that they need to be on. That's so hard, because when you don't have the information, it's hard to take action. And from there, I started to get so much feedback. It was awesome. I couldn't believe it. It was like, in this day and age, I can't believe that there's still this untapped market that I can just start something as a total nobody and have people come and love listening to me. I was like, that can't happen in 2020, but it totally did. And it just made me realize how lacking it is in community. And I was like, it's one thing for you to have a YouTube and for me to have a podcast and be able to like talk at these people, but how do we talk with these people more? Yeah. So I wanted to start a community. So I started the HA Society. And I know that there are some other like Facebook groups out there that's doing it, but I wanted to create a space where people could come in and take community calls together and chat face to face. And that maybe I wanted to take a different twist on like the rules about what you can and can't talk about, because I noticed a distinct lack in people being allowed to talk about what was hard for them. Like, oh, I'm having trouble giving up exercise, or I haven't given up exercise yet. Like, or I'm having trouble, stopping tracking calories and stuff like that. That there's a lot of people out there who ban that conversation because it's triggering for others. And I just have a different perspective on that. So I wanted to create a space where people who have my perspective can come and share. So we meet face to face multiple times a week. We also do digital coaching in there now. That's a new thing, but basically, if you're a member, you can chat with our coaches that are inside of the HA Society to get advice about you, and you get like a free, well, it's not free, it's included in your membership call, so that so that the coaches can really understand your situation. Yeah. Because we want to be making sure that we're not giving advice to you that's not helpful. So yeah, I get practitioners and all kinds of good stuff in to come and run events and teach about different aspects, like lab testing, how to talk to your doctor, how to implement exercise after HA, all stuff like that. So yeah, it's just a network for women with HA.
And it's honestly, it's so great. And I think like what you touched on is that you didn't really feel like you, I guess, deserve to have HA, right? You didn't fit into that.
Deserve is the word that comes up. Yeah. I don't deserve to recover because I'm not lean enough. Yeah.
Exactly. And there's that whole aspect of it, but also in a world where we're told that everyone should eat less and move more, and don't get me wrong, there is a huge chunk of people that do need to like abide by the government guidelines of eat less, move more. But what about, I just always felt as if like there wasn't, what about me? Because I'm being told to eat more and move less, and how, what, how's that? And the family didn't get it, people just didn't understand. People be like, what do you mean, like you look great, like you're fit, like you're healthy, you're slim, like, and I would be praised for fitting into certain clothes. And it's so great that the HA Society gives you that safe space of being like, do you know what, actually, like, yeah, you're not alone, and actually, like, don't worry, there's a lot of us. And I think that's what, like, that's what is really nice of like just knowing that it's like, hello, yeah, me too. And it's like, oh shit, did you take fitness too far too? Yeah, did you? Yeah, oh shit, sorry. Sort of thing.
Exactly. I don't know if this is the right term exactly, but we kind of need to like normalize at the moment, not normalize HA like, oh, it's fine, we should have it. But right now, temporarily, I think we need to normalize this experience that a lot of us are having in society.
Yeah, I always think about like, actually, like if we educate every female that this could happen to them, it helps normalize the stigma that's attached to it. So like if when we're, how I approach things, and like if I ever have like I do online coaching, that I would say like, hey, look, like this is fine. For example, I do a lot of like if someone's been in diet culture for a long time, I coach them out of that by still reaching whatever goal they want. But I tell that through my story of just saying, look, like you can go and get a personal trainer to put you on a really grueling program and tracking everything and eating chicken and rice, and but do they know that this could happen to you, and do you know that this could happen to you? And I think there's so much power in just educating even someone, and guys included, people that might never ever, it might never ever happen to them, but just knowing that it could, I just think really helps that whole awareness, and I think will help, I think, reduce it as well.
Yeah, the campaign idea that comes to mind to like make it take off is making it a thing for all women to tell their personal trainer, nutrition coach, whatever, to always say, and I don't want to lose my period, or to always say, update them every week on the cycle, and normalize that conversation.
I think
that would get people thinking about it.
But also, as personal trainers, you should be taught about that. You can go and train to be pre and postnatal qualified, which I'm just about to do. But in that, like as a personal trainer, you were never once taught anything about the female cycle. And I can go all into this whole feminist history about like why we wouldn't, because of like history and stuff like that. But I'm not gonna, that's for a different time. But yeah.
But I think the best way to get that to change, that education piece to change, is to be the market that demands it to happen. Yeah, I feel like very, very rarely can the company dictate what the market is going to ask for.
Yeah.
And the market has to ask for it. And we're not asking for it. What we're asking for is for you to put us through things that cause us to lose our period.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of change in terms of like, you know, like the Moon Cup and like online retailers, like any like Nasty Girl, for example, are selling like vibrators and stuff like that. So I am seeing like female health and female sex and sexual health is becoming a lot more normalized, which I think is amazing. But I think there's a long way to go, and that's why I think what you're doing is absolutely incredible. So if you do have HA, I would really recommend you go over to Dani and check out the HA podcast and society. Where can everyone find you, Dani?
Thanks. Yeah, so you can learn about it at thehasociety.com, and you can learn about the podcast at hapodcast.com. So annoyingly, there's no the in there. Or just search hypothalamic amenorrhea podcast. Do your best to type that in right the first time, and we'll come up. And that's the best thing to do, is just dive in there and get get on the wait list. I send like emails every week with just information about HA to help you figure out your next step along the way. So yeah, I think just be absorbing from all of those places.
Perfect. Dani, thank you so much. It was lovely to chat to you. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please do give it, if you're on YouTube, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. If you're on the podcast, please can you leave us a little review? It just helps us get our message out to as many people as possible. And if you're on both, well then do both. Right, I'll catch you in my next one.
Do both.
Is that what I sound like?
Yeah.